The static faded, leaving only the low hum of the machines in Commander Leon Reed's office. For a moment, everything was silent again. But Reed's mind was not. He replayed the aliens' desperate words in his head: billions dead, extinction, please help. He had heard distress calls before, but none like this. None that sounded so final. Reed stood slowly, his eyes locked on the red blinking light. Mars Station was peaceful, distant from any war or danger. But that one signal had changed everything. "Lieutenant Hale," Reed said, pressing the comm, traced the signal's origin. "Yes, sir," came the reply. Reed moved to the large star map covering his wall. Thousands of glowing dots represented known systems, human, allied, and unknown. Near the edge of the map, a faint marker blinked. Tala Collective, Outer Sector 17. He sighed. So far from us and yet, close enough to matter. Minutes later, Hale's voice returned. "Commander, we've confirmed it." The message came through Relay 9, 3 days old, degraded but authentic. 3 days, Reed repeated. He closed his eyes for a second. That means, by now, their worlds could already be gone. The door opened and Chief Engineer Mara Torres stepped in, holding a data pad. Her face was tense. "I heard about the signal, sir. Is it true?" Reed nodded. "The Tala sent an SOS. Someone is wiping them out. Do we know who?" "Not yet. But I intend to find out." He turned toward the window, looking out over Mars Station. Dozens of ships floated in silent orbit. Freighters, survey vessels, and a few old warships still carrying the scars of the border wars. Humanity hadn't fought a real war in 20 years. Some believed they never would again. Reed wasn't so sure. An hour later, the command room of Mars Station buzzed with activity. Officers moved between consoles, screens filled with data, and the air carried the quiet tension of something big. "Admiral Blake on secure line," someone called out. Reed straightened. The holographic projector flickered, and Admiral Jordan Blake appeared, gray hair pulled back, sharp eyes that had seen too much war and too little peace. "Commander Reed," she said. "I've reviewed your report. This is serious." "Yes, ma'am." "The Tala Collective is being wiped out. Their signal shows heavy orbital bombardment and unknown weapon signatures." Blake's voice hardened. "You've compared them?" "Yes. They match the same pattern as the border wars. The same radiation spikes. The same destruction." For a few seconds the Admiral said nothing. Then she whispered, "So they're back." Reed nodded. "And this time they're not targeting humans. Yet." Blake crossed her arms. "You know the Council won't approve any intervention without debate. By the time they finish debating, there won't be a Tala Collective left," Reed said. The Admiral gave a grim smile. "You remind me of myself 20 years ago." Reed didn't smile back. "Ma'am, if it's the same enemy, we need to be ready. If they took out the Tala, they'll come for us next." Blake's hologram flickered as she leaned closer. "You're asking me to move a fleet without permission." "I'm asking you to save lives," Reed replied simply. There was a long silence. The hum of the station seemed louder now. Finally Blake nodded once. "Prepare the 7th Fleet. Quietly. I'll handle the Council." By the next morning Mars Station had changed. Hangar doors opened one by one as massive ships came alive. Engines roared, weapons were armed, and soldiers ran through metal corridors with determination in their steps. From the observation deck, Reed watched the movement below. He could feel the tension, the same quiet fear before a storm. Chief Torres joined him. "We're loading the Thunderchild now. Supplies, drones, everything. The crew's ready." "Good," Reed said. "We'll leave within the hour." Torres hesitated. "Sir, do you think we can win this?" Reed turned to her. "This isn't about winning. It's about doing what's right." He looked back at the fleet, floating like silent giants against the red curve of Mars. Across the void of space, far beyond human borders, the Tala homeworld burned. From orbit, massive ships, dark and scaled like beasts, unleashed waves of energy down onto the planet. Cities vanished in seconds. Oceans boiled. Skies turned black. And from the bridge of one of those alien ships, a tall reptilian creature watched with cold satisfaction. "Governor Wren's message has been sent," a smaller alien said in its hissing voice. The leader turned. "Good. Let the Deathworlders hear their cries. Let them come." He smiled, a sharp, cruel expression. "We have been waiting for them." Back on Mars, the 7th Fleet's engines thundered to life. The narrator's voice would fade in over the rising sound. They called for help, and humanity answered. Not with words, but with fire. As the ships left Mars orbit, streaking toward the stars, Commander Reed whispered to himself. This time, we bring them no mercy. The fleet vanished into the dark, heading toward a war no one truly understood yet. The engines of 30 warships roared across the black sky of Mars' orbit. Their hulls glowed under the distant light of the sun, each ship carrying hundreds of crew, soldiers, and silent determination. From the command deck of the U.S. Thunderchild, Captain Morgan West watched as the fleet formed up. The stars beyond the glass looked cold and endless, but the captain's eyes were steady. Status? He asked. 7th Fleet is assembled and ready, sir, replied Lieutenant Torres, her hands flying across the holographic controls. All systems green. Fuel levels optimal. Weapons charged. West nodded. Begin final checks. Launch in 20 minutes. Around him, the bridge buzzed with quiet voices and controlled movement. Officers checked readouts, pilots calibrated engines, and communication techs tested secure channels. There was tension in the air, not fear but something heavier. Everyone knew this wasn't a routine mission. Everyone knew they might not come back. Down in the hangar, hundreds of soldiers moved in ordered chaos. Mechs were powered up, drones checked, and weapons distributed. Mechanics shouted over the noise as they loaded the last cargo containers. Sergeant Harlow leaned against a crate, watching his squad. You heard the captain. We're heading to Tala space. Private Jensen looked up, wiping grease from his hands. I thought the council said no intervention? Harlow gave a dry laugh. Council talks. Soldiers act. The men around him chuckled nervously. They had fought in small border skirmishes, pirate hunts, and drills, but this felt different. Who are we fighting, Sarge? Jensen asked. Harlow's face turned serious. Whoever thought it was smart to kill billions of civilians? On the command deck again, the countdown began. 10 minutes to departure, announced Torres. Captain West stood tall, hands clasped behind his back. Open channel to all ships. A soft chime echoed through every warship in the fleet. Thousands of crew members paused to listen. This is Captain Morgan West of the Thunderchild, he began, his voice calm and steady. You've all heard the reports. A peaceful race called the Tala is being wiped from existence. The Galactic Council will talk and argue, but while they do, people are dying. He looked around his bridge, meeting the eyes of his crew. We're not going to let that happen. We are humanity's shield. We answer when others turn away. Today we stand not as conquerors, but as protectors. He paused. You all know the risks, but you also know what's right. There was silence across the channel. Then one by one the crews began to cheer. Torres smiled faintly. Fleet morale is strong, sir. West allowed himself a small nod. Good. Because we're going to need it. Launch sequence initiated. The red glow of Mars faded behind them as each warship activated its FTL drive. Blue-white light gathered at their engines, humming like thunder trapped in metal. Fleet, prepare for jump in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, jump. The stars stretched into streaks of light as the fleet disappeared into hyperspace. Hours passed inside the hyperspace corridor. The stars outside looked like long rivers of silver. Inside the ships, everything felt strangely calm. Engineers checked systems, soldiers trained, and officers ran simulations. In the Thunderchild's briefing room, Captain West stood beside Commander Leon Reed, who had joined the mission as tactical advisor. Reed pointed to a glowing star map hovering in the air. Based on the last transmission, the Krell are moving from the outer colonies toward the Tala homeworld, Velar Prime. They've destroyed at least 3 planets in 5 days. West frowned. That's faster than expected. They're efficient, Reed said grimly. And ruthless. No survivors, no escape pods. Just glassed worlds. West looked down. What kind of species does that? Reed's voice was quiet. One that doesn't see others as life. The room fell silent for a moment. Then Reed continued, we'll reach the Tala border in 12 hours. If the Krell follow the same pattern, they'll hit Velar Prime in 5. So we'll be there before them, West said firmly. Reed nodded. That's the plan. Meanwhile in the mess hall, soldiers ate quietly. No one laughed. The hum of the engines was the only sound. Private Jensen broke the silence. You ever think about what we'll find out there? Sergeant Harlow chewed his food slowly. Doesn't matter. We're ready for it. Still, Jensen said, an alien race that destroys entire planets? What do they gain? Harlow looked out the window at the shifting blue tunnel of hyperspace. Maybe they just want to remind the galaxy who's stronger. Another soldier muttered, then they'll learn what Deathworlders are made of. A few nodded in grim agreement. Back on the bridge, alarms suddenly beeped. Captain, we're picking up something, Torres said quickly. A signal, faint, intermittent. West turned. Source. Unknown, sir. Not Tala. It's human. Reed stepped closer. Human? Out here? Torres frowned, adjusting frequencies. It's an automated beacon, old military code from the Border Wars era. Reed's heart skipped. Put it on speaker. Static filled the bridge, followed by a weak voice repeating over and over. This is US frontier. Attacked. Unknown enemy. Ship crippled. They're still out there. Then silence. West's jaw tightened. Location. Triangulating. It's just outside the Tala system, sir. Same region the Krell are moving through. Reed whispered, that can't be a coincidence. The captain's voice hardened. Adjust course. We're checking it out. Hours later, the Thunderchild and 2 escort ships dropped out of hyperspace. Before them drifted the broken hull of a massive warship, old, burned, and lifeless. The name barely visible on its side, US Frontier. Reed felt a chill. That ship vanished 20 years ago, during the Border Wars. Scan for life signs, West ordered. None, sir. But there's residual power. Some systems are still running. The camera, for your video narration, could pan across the dark ship, twisted metal, shattered decks, frozen bodies drifting through space. The narrator's voice would drop to a whisper. Ghosts of the past, waiting to tell their story. Reed turned to West. We need to board her. The captain hesitated. You think it's safe? Reed looked at the ruined ship outside the viewport. No. But I think we need to know what happened here. West nodded slowly. Prepare an away team. As the dropship detached from the Thunderchild and glided toward the derelict vessel, Reed couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching. Inside the Frontier's dark corridors, lights flickered weakly. The air was still. Frozen frost covered every wall. Looks like the power's barely holding, one soldier said. They moved deeper into the ship, weapons ready. Then suddenly a door slid open with a hiss. A small, dim light blinked on a terminal. A message looped across the cracked screen. They're not what we thought. They don't invade. They harvest. Reed's eyes widened. Harvest. Before he could say another word, a faint metallic sound echoed through the corridor, like claws scraping metal. The team froze. Sir, movement on the scanner, whispered a soldier. Reed turned slowly, flashlight trembling in his hand. The beam cut through the shadows, and caught the brief reflection of something tall, scaled, and moving. Then the lights went out. The emergency lights flickered red inside the dead ship. Cold air hissed through cracked metal walls as the boarding team stepped deeper into the wreck of the US Frontier. Commander Leon Reed led the way, his flashlight cutting through the thick dust. Every sound echoed, the creak of armor, the soft hum of failing power, the slow heartbeat of something that should have been long dead. Stay close, Reed ordered quietly. No noise unless necessary. The soldiers moved carefully, rifles raised. Their helmet lights flicked over floating debris, helmets, twisted tools, shattered screens. Private Jensen whispered, feels like a tomb. Sergeant Harlow muttered, that's because it is. The corridor ahead was black and endless. Somewhere in the darkness, something dripped, steady, slow, like the ship itself was bleeding. Narrator voice deep and calm. For 20 years, the Frontier had drifted in silence. A ghost from the Border Wars, forgotten by time. But now it whispered again. The team reached a large blast door. Its metal surface was scarred by claws. Deep grooves stretched across it, burned edges still dark from plasma fire. Reed examined them, his brow furrowed. No human weapon did this. Harlow ran a gloved hand along one of the marks. Something ripped through this door. Reed's flashlight caught something else. A pattern burned into the wall beside the door. Strange circular symbols like writing but wrong. The edges shimmered faintly under the light. Torres, you seeing this feed? Reed asked over comms. Her voice crackled through his earpiece from the Thunderchild. Yes, Commander. Scanning. Those markings match none of our known languages. Then it's them, Reed said softly. The Krell. He took a breath. All right, let's see what's behind this door. The engineer set up a small plasma cutter. Sparks lit the darkness as the metal hissed and melted. The door groaned, slowly sliding open. A wave of cold air hit them. Inside was the Frontier's main command deck. The once busy bridge was now a graveyard. Consoles were shattered, chairs overturned. Frozen bodies floated in zero gravity, their faces pale and twisted in silent screams. God? Jensen whispered. They didn't even get the chance to fight. Reed floated forward, scanning one of the consoles. The screen flickered weakly to life, showing fragmented logs. Unknown vessels detected, engaging FTL blockade. Hull breach on deck 12, they're boarding. They're inside the ship. Then static. Reed leaned closer, his heart heavy. They were ambushed. Sir, one of the soldiers called. You need to see this. Reed turned. On the far wall of the bridge, something large was stuck. A cocoon of hardened resin cracked open from the inside. Inside it, black scales and long claws were visible. What the hell is that? Jensen whispered. Reed stared at it. Proof. Back on the Thunderchild, Captain West watched the feed from the away team, his jaw tight. Those markings, those claws, that's our enemy, he said quietly. And now we know how they fight. Admiral Blake's hologram appeared beside him, her voice calm but cold. Recover whatever data you can, Captain. Then pull your people out. We need to prepare the fleet. West nodded. Understood. But on the frontier things were already getting worse. Commander, Torres said over comms, I'm detecting a power surge on that ship. You might have triggered something. Reed looked up sharply. Power surge? The frontier's reactors should be dead. They were. But something's draining what little energy remains. Suddenly the lights flickered. The temperature dropped even more. Sir, Harlow said, his voice tight, motion sensors picking up movement. Multiple contacts. How many? Too many. Reed's hand tightened around his rifle. Everyone defensive positions. Circle up. The corridor outside the bridge echoed, slow, heavy steps on metal. The soldiers raised their weapons, flashlights sweeping across the darkness. Then something moved. A shadow glided across the wall, tall, fast, silent. Private Jensen froze. Did you see that? Before anyone could answer, the thing hit. A blur of black scales and claws crashed through the doorway, smashing into two soldiers. They fired, plasma bolts lighting the dark like lightning, but the creature moved faster. It was at least 3 meters tall, armored in natural plates, its eyes burning gold. One swipe sent a soldier flying across the room. Another shot hit its chest. The armor cracked but didn't break. Fall back. Reed shouted. To the airlock. The team fired in bursts, retreating down the corridor. The creature roared, a deep, vibrating sound that made the metal tremble. More shapes appeared in the shadows behind it. They're coming through the vents. Harlow yelled. The team ran. Narrator voice low and tense. For the first time in 2 decades, humanity came face to face with its old ghosts. And the ghosts were very real. They reached the airlock, sealing the door behind them. The metal shook under heavy impacts. Torres. Reed shouted. We're under attack. Open the outer bay now. Working on it, her voice cracked with static. You have 30 seconds before the docking clamps release. The pounding continued. The walls groaned. Claws screeched against metal. Jensen's voice trembled. They're trying to cut through. Reed turned, grabbed the young soldier by the shoulder. Hold it together, Private. We're getting out of here. He aimed his rifle at the door and fired. Plasma bolts scorched the air as the door began to dent inward. Then click. Airlock open. Torres shouted. Go, go, go. Reed yelled. The team rushed through as the door behind them exploded inward. Reed turned for one last look, and saw one of the creatures crawl through the hole, its jaws opening wide, teeth gleaming like knives. He hit the airlock control. The hatch slammed shut just as the alien lunged. Moments later, the dropship detached from the frontier, engines roaring. The crew inside breathed heavily, covered in sweat and blood. Harlow sat down hard, helmet shaking. What the hell were those things? Reed didn't answer. He just stared out the viewport, watching the frontier drift behind them. Through the window he saw movement, dozens of dark shapes crawling along the hull, watching as the dropship pulled away. They weren't just killing, he said quietly. They were feeding. When the dropship landed back aboard the Thunderchild, Captain West met them in the hangar. Reed stepped out, carrying a small black data core in his hand. This is from the Frontier's bridge. It might tell us everything. West nodded, eyes grim. Medical and Deccan first. Then briefing in 10. As Reed walked away, the hangar lights flickered slightly, just once. No one noticed the faint black smear on the side of the dropship, where something small and alien had burned itself into the hull. In the briefing room, West and Reed stood over the holographic display. The recovered data played in fragments, audio logs, ship logs, distress messages. Then one final recording appeared. The screen showed Captain Aiden Ross of the Frontier, his face pale and sweating. The background shook with explosions. If anyone finds this, they're not invaders. They're collectors. They take DNA, tissue, entire cities. They leave nothing behind. They call themselves the Krell. They were watching us long before the border wars. And now, they're coming back. The message ended with static. Reed looked at West. They were studying us. Preparing. West nodded slowly. Then we'll show them what happens when. The stars outside the viewport shimmered as the 7th Fleet dropped out of hyperspace. One by one, 30 warships appeared, their engines glowing blue, their hulls gleaming in the darkness. Before them lay the Tala system, and what remained of it. Gas clouds drifted where planets had once been. Shattered moons hung broken like bones in the void. The fleet scanner showed entire orbits littered with debris, burned ships, frozen cities, broken lives. Captain Morgan West stood silent on the bridge of the UES Thunderchild, staring at the destruction. No one spoke. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of sensors and the slow beating sound of human anger. Commander Leon Reed stepped beside him. His voice was low. They didn't just destroy the planets, Captain. They erased them. West's jaw tightened. The message from the Frontier was right. They don't conquer. They harvest. He turned to his officers. Give me visuals of Velar Prime. Let's see if anyone's still alive. The holographic map zoomed in on the Tala homeworld, Velar Prime, once green and shining with oceans and forests. Now it was dark. The planet's atmosphere burned red, and massive craters covered its surface. Lieutenant Torres adjusted her controls. I'm detecting faint energy signatures on the surface. Could be survivors, or could be Krell machinery. Reed leaned forward. Send drones. I want eyes down there. Within minutes, small metallic probes streaked toward the planet's surface. Their cameras showed what no one wanted to see. Cities turned to ash, oceans boiled to steam, and strange black spires rising from the ground like giant insects had built them. Torres gasped. What are those things? Reed's face darkened. Harvest towers. They collect genetic material. They've done this before. The bridge fell silent again. Narrator calm but dark. Where once life flourished, now only fire remained. But in that fire, humanity found its purpose. A voice came from the comms officer. Incoming transmission, Captain. Audio only. It's Tala language. Put it through, West ordered. A faint, broken voice filled the room. This is Governor Wren. To anyone listening, they're everywhere. Our defense grid is gone. The Krell have taken the cities. Please, help us. Static. Reed clenched his fists. She's still alive. West nodded once. Then we find her. He turned to the tactical station. Deploy recon squadron. If the Krell are still here, I want to know exactly where. 15 minutes later, a small group of stealth fighters left the fleet and dove into the planet's atmosphere. From orbit, the Thunderchild tracked their descent. The recon feed showed burning skies and crumbling towers. Recon 1, this is Thunderchild Command, said Torres over comms. Keep your distance from the black structures. We still don't know what they are. Copy that, the pilot replied. As they flew lower, something massive moved in the clouds, a shape almost invisible until lightning flashed behind it. Oh, Command? We've got movement, big movement, above the city ruins. Then the radar alarm screamed. Torres shouted, multiple contacts. They're coming from orbit. Captain West's eyes went to the main screen. Dozens, no hundreds, of Krell ships appeared above the planet, emerging from stealth. Long, jagged hulls, organic and metallic, shaped like living beasts. They were waiting, Reed whispered. West raised his voice. Fleet, defensive formation. Get the carriers behind the line. Prepare all weapons. Narrator, rising tension. The hunters had become the hunted. The Krell were not fleeing, they were ready. The Krell fleet began to move. Their ships glowed with dark red energy. Then, light. Beams of plasma shot across space, cutting through the black. Evasive maneuvers. West shouted. Return fire. The Thunderchild's cannons roared to life. Blue-white bolts of energy burst from its sides, lighting up the void. Other human ships joined the barrage, filling space with streaks of color and fire. The first wave of Krell ships exploded under the onslaught, but more replaced them immediately. Reed gritted his teeth. They're trying to surround us. Not on my watch, West replied. Bring the fleet about. Focus all fire on the center line. The 7th Fleet turned as one, engines flaring. Human warships slammed into the Krell formation like a hammer hitting glass. The impact was devastating. 3 Krell cruisers shattered under direct hits. But the counterattack came fast. A massive Krell ship, larger than anything humanity had seen, fired a beam that tore through space like lightning. It struck one of the human destroyers, slicing it clean in half. US Vanguard is down. Torres shouted. West's voice stayed calm. Recover escape pods. Keep formation. Another explosion rocked the Thunderchild. Alarms blared. Sparks flew across the bridge. Reed grabbed the railing. Shields at 60%. Reroute auxiliary power. West ordered. We hold this line. Meanwhile, above Velar Prime, the recon fighters still circled. Command, this is Recon 1. We found survivors. Repeat, Tala civilians are alive in the ruins. Static crackled. There's a signal beacon, Governor Wren's coordinates, but there's movement everywhere. The Krell are deploying ground units. Understood, Torres said. Get out of there. Negative, Command, we can mark the landing zone for evac. The feed cut off in a flash of static and light. Reed slammed his fist on the console. They're gone. West looked toward the planet. We can't lose both the Tala and our own people. He turned to the communications officer. Patch me through to Admiral Blake on secure channel. Moments later, Blake's image appeared, distant but sharp. Admiral, West said. We've confirmed Krell presence in orbit and on the surface. Governor Wren is alive and there are survivors. Request permission to deploy ground forces. Blake was silent for a moment, then nodded. Permission granted. Protect those people, Captain. And find out what the Krell are doing down there. Yes, ma'am. The hologram faded. Reed looked at West. We'll need every ship to cover the dropships. West nodded. Then we give them cover. Tell the fleet to open a corridor. Humanity's going in. Minutes later, the Thunderchild's hangar burst into motion. Dropships roared to life, lined up for launch. Soldiers in dark armor checked weapons, their faces hidden behind visors. Sergeant Harlow stood with his squad, gripping his rifle. All right, people. We're going down there to save what's left of the Tala. Remember your training, keep your comms open, and don't touch anything that looks alive. Jensen smirked weakly. So, everything? Harlow grinned. Exactly. The dropships launched, streaking down through fire and storm. From orbit, the fleet continued to fight, human ships forming a shield wall as the smaller transports dove through gaps in the battle. Narrator, intense cinematic. While the heavens burned, humanity descended into the fire. Not as conquerors, but as guardians. The first dropship touched down on Velar Prime near the ruins of an ancient Tala city. The ground was black glass, the air heavy with ash. Strange spires loomed in the distance, pulsing with red light. Reed's voice came over the comms. You're close to the last known Tala signal. Proceed with caution. The soldiers moved through the ruins, silent, alert. Statues of the Tala, carved from stone, stood half-melted and broken. Then they found movement. A Tala female, weak and covered in dust, crawled from the rubble. The smoke still hung over Velar Prime like a dying storm. What was once a proud Tala city now stood as black ruins, shattered towers, molten streets, and glowing craters from the orbital strike. Through that broken wasteland, Sergeant Harlow and what was left of his unit moved quietly, scanning the shadows. Their armor was scorched, their ammo low, and their hearts heavy. But they were alive, and they had a mission. From his comms, Commander Leon Reed's calm voice came through. Ground Team 1, the recon drones show a large structure 2 clicks north. The Tala survivors signal places the governor there. That's your target. Proceed with caution. Harlow looked toward the horizon. In the distance, a tall black spire rose from the ashes, a twisted thing of metal and bone. Red light pulsed from within it, like a heart beating beneath the surface. The heart spire, one of his men whispered. Harlow nodded grimly. Let's move. The team advanced through the ruins, weapons raised. Every sound echoed. Every movement could mean death. They passed the remains of a Tala temple. Statues lay cracked on the ground, their eyes hollow. Strange alien symbols burned faintly on the walls, glowing the same red as the spire ahead. Private Jensen whispered, feels like the planet itself is bleeding. Quiet, Harlow said. Eyes sharp. Above them, dark shapes moved through the smoke. Krell drones, insect-like machines with glowing red eyes. They hovered in formation, scanning the ground. Stay low, Harlow ordered. Thermal cloaks on. The soldiers crouched under broken stone, holding their breath as the drones passed overhead, their red lights sweeping across the ruins. For a long moment there was silence. Then the sound faded. "Clear," said one soldier softly. They continued forward. Narrator low and tense. The heart spire called to them like a nightmare. Every step forward pulled them deeper into the unknown. When they reached the outer ring of the spire, they saw what it truly was. It wasn't a building. It was alive. The structure seemed to breathe. The surface moved slightly like skin under pressure. Black veins pulsed with red light. The air around it shimmered with heat and a low humming sound, almost like whispers in another language. Private Lee stared. "That's not metal." Harlow touched the wall with his glove. The surface was warm. "It's grown, not built." Reed's voice came through their comms. "That matches our scans. Be careful inside, Sergeant. Whatever's powering that thing, it's not just machinery." "Understood," Harlow replied. Moving in. The entrance to the spire was a wide arch that looked melted open. Inside, the corridors glowed red. The walls pulsed faintly like arteries. Every few seconds, a deep vibration shook the ground. They moved cautiously. Harlow turned on his helmet light, scanning the walls. Symbols, Tala and Krell, were etched into the surface, mixed together as if fused by force. Private Jensen pointed at one. "That's Tala writing, it says harvest. The rest I can't read." Then they heard it, a voice. Faint. "Wait. Human, here." The soldiers froze. "Governor Rin?" Harlow called. There was silence. Then again the voice, clearer this time. "Help me." Harlow motioned to his team. "Follow the sound." They advanced deeper into the spire. The passage opened into a vast chamber filled with strange pods, hanging from the ceiling like cocoons. Inside them bodies. Tala civilians. Some still moved weakly, others didn't. Jensen swallowed hard. "Oh God." Reed's voice came over comms. "Report." Harlow spoke quietly. "Hundreds of Tala, suspended in something. Some still alive. They're being harvested, sir." Reed was silent for a moment. Then coldly, "Find the governor." "And the rest." At the center of the chamber they found her, Governor Rin, trapped inside a larger pod of black glass, cables and red tendrils connected to her body. Her eyes fluttered open as they approached. "Human," she whispered, weakly smiling. "I knew you would come." Harlow stepped closer. "We're getting you out." He raised his rifle and fired a burst at the glass. It cracked but didn't break. The tendrils tightened and the red light inside grew brighter. "She's connected to the core," Lee said. "If we cut the wrong line it could kill her." "Then we do it slow," Harlow said. As he reached for his knife to slice one of the tendrils, the ground shook violently. The spire roared with a deep, inhuman sound. From the shadows above, massive shapes began to move. "Contacts!" Jensen yelled. The Krell dropped from the walls, huge creatures, armored and snarling, their claws dripping with molten metal. Their eyes burned red. "Defensive line!" Harlow shouted. The chamber erupted in chaos. Plasma bolts lit the air. The Krell charged, smashing through pods and debris. Soldiers fired in every direction, their rifles screaming. "Commander, we're under attack." Harlow yelled into the comm, "Multiple hostiles, inside the spire." Reed's voice crackled back, "Hold position. Reinforcements en route." "Too late for that." Harlow replied as one Krell lunged at him. He fired point blank, the blast tearing through the creature's chest. It fell, screeching, but another replaced it immediately. Private Lee was pulled into the air by a tendril. "Help!" Jensen grabbed her, firing upward. The tendril snapped and she fell back into his arms. The ground split open beneath them. A blinding red light poured out, revealing the spire's heart, a massive pulsating core surrounded by living tissue and machinery. Ren gasped weakly. "You must destroy it, or they will come again." Harlow turned to his team. "Charges out. We blow this place to hell." The soldiers planted explosives around the chamber, sticking them to the core supports. As they worked, a new sound filled the air, a deep, mechanical scream that made the walls tremble. From the darkness above, something massive descended. The Krell commander. It was easily 4 meters tall, covered in black armor that shimmered like oil. Its head was a mix of bone and metal, and its voice was a horrible blend of roar and machine. "You do not belong here, Deathworlders." The soldiers froze. Harlow stepped forward, raising his rifle. "Neither do you." The Krell lunged. Harlow fired, but the creature was fast. It slammed into him, throwing him across the chamber. His armor cracked as he hit the wall. The monster turned to the others, claws ready. Jensen and Lee opened fire, their shots burning into its armor but not stopping it. The Krell swung, knocking both soldiers down. Harlow coughed, pain shooting through his ribs. He saw the detonator lying near him, just out of reach. The Krell raised a claw ready to strike. Then, boom. A blue beam cut through the ceiling, tearing the chamber apart. The Thunderchild's orbital cannon had fired. The Krell commander screamed as the light hit it, its body burning in half before vanishing into ash. Harlow reached for the detonator. All units clear the chamber. Now. They grabbed Governor Wren and ran for the exit. The walls shook violently as the charges armed. 30 seconds, someone shouted. They raced through collapsing corridors, chased by fire and falling debris. Outside, the ground split open as the spire began to collapse in on itself. The soldiers burst into the open air, diving behind wreckage as the explosion ripped through the planet's surface. The Heart Spire erupted like a volcano, red light, fire, and molten debris shooting into the sky. The shockwave threw them back. Then silence. The spire was gone. Only ash and broken metal remained. The sky above Velar Prime still burned. Ash drifted through the air like dark snow, and the ruins of the Heart Spire smoldered in the distance. From orbit, the Seventh Fleet hung in silence, scarred, battle-worn but alive. Ships floated among the wreckage of Krell vessels, their hulls marked by the fire of war. In the command center of the UES Thunderchild, Captain Morgan West stood before the main screen, watching the planet slowly turn below. Behind him, Commander Leon Reed entered, his uniform still stained with ash from the surface mission. West turned slightly. "How is she?" "Governor Wren's alive," Reed replied. "But she's weak. Whatever those creatures did to her, it nearly broke her mind." "She said they'd come for us," West said. "I believe her." Reed nodded. "They will." There was silence for a moment. Then the comms officer called out. "Sir." Long-range scanners picking up movement at the system's edge. West walked forward. "How many?" The officer hesitated. "Multiple warp signatures. More than 100. "No, 200. "Sir, it's a fleet." Reed's jaw tightened. "They're here." Narrator, slow, tense. The hunters had returned. The Krell fleet came not for conquest, but for vengeance. Moments later, alarms echoed through every deck of every human ship. Red lights flashed. Crews ran to stations. Weapons came online. "Admiral Blake on secure channel," the comms officer said. Her holographic image appeared beside West. Even through static, her presence was strong. "Captain West," she said firmly. "The Krell fleet is entering the system. 200 warships, maybe more. You are outnumbered 6-1. West straightened. "Then we'll make every shot count, Admiral." Blake's eyes narrowed. "You can't win this head-on. I'm mobilizing reinforcements, but you'll need to hold them until we arrive." Reed looked at the tactical map. "Estimated time?" 20 hours, Blake replied. Reed exhaled. "We'll be lucky to last 2. West gave a thin smile. "Then we make those 2 hours count for something." Blake met his eyes. "Do what you have to. Humanity is watching." Her image faded. The fleet moved into formation. 30 human ships against a wall of approaching shadows. From the bridge, the view was terrifying, hundreds of Krell vessels emerging from hyperspace, black and red, stretching across the stars like a storm made of metal and rage. Reed whispered, "It's a goddamn swarm." West's voice was calm. "They think they can drown us in numbers. They're wrong." He turned to his crew. "Activate every weapon. Charge the railguns. Prepare missile volleys 1 through 5. If this is our last stand, we're taking as many of them as we can." The crew shouted back in unison, "Aye, sir." Narrator, rising tension. No retreat. No surrender. The Deathworlders would hold the line. The Krell fleet advanced, their ships glowing with deep crimson light. Then, like lightning, they opened fire. Plasma beams streaked across space. Human shields flared, absorbing the first hits but weakening fast. The void erupted with light and sound, a storm of fire and fury. "Return fire," West commanded. The Thunderchild roared. Railguns thundered. Missiles streaked forward, leaving trails of white smoke in the void. The first wave of Krell ships exploded in brilliant bursts of fire. The other human ships followed suit, Vanguard, Liberty, Solarwind, each firing everything they had. But the Krell kept coming. One by one, their red energy beams tore through the human formation. "UES Hammerfall down," someone shouted. "Solar wind venting atmosphere." Shields at 40%. Reed gripped the railing, eyes locked on the tactical screen. They're trying to flank us. Then we push through the center, West said. Tell all ships, tight formation. Full burn forward. The 7th Fleet surged ahead, cutting through the heart of the Krell armada like a blade. The Thunderchild's main cannon fired a continuous beam, slicing 2 Krell battleships in half. Reed's voice echoed, target their command vessel, bearing 049. Locked. Fire. A torpedo streaked forward, glowing white-hot. It hit the Krell flagship dead center. The explosion was massive, shockwaves rippled through nearby ships. Cheers erupted on the bridge. But the celebration was short-lived. A new reading appeared on the sensors. Something even bigger, emerging from hyperspace behind the Krell fleet. Torres, the tactical officer, gasped. Captain, that's not a ship. That's a city. The massive object appeared, dark and monstrous. A Krell supercarrier, miles wide, its surface covered in towers and glowing spines. Reed stared. That thing's generating its own gravity field. West's voice was low. That's their command hive. Narrator dark slow. The Krell hive had arrived. The heart of their empire. And it had come to erase humanity. The supercarrier unleashed a wave of smaller ships, like insects pouring from a nest. They swarmed toward the human line. Reed shouted over the noise, they'll overwhelm us if we stay here. West turned sharply. Then we take the fight to them. What? We go for the hive. If we kill their brain, the body dies. Reed hesitated only a second. Then he nodded. You're insane, Captain. West smiled faintly. That's why it'll work. He turned to the comms officer. Signal all ships, follow the Thunderchild. We're striking the hive directly. The fleet charged forward, weaving through the chaos. Krell ships exploded all around them as human missiles and plasma beams tore through the swarm. One by one, the smaller Krell craft began to falter, their formations breaking. But the supercarrier loomed ever larger ahead, its weapons lighting up like a dying sun. Brace! Reed shouted. The Thunderchild shook violently as plasma fire hit its shields. Panels sparked, alarms blared. Shields at 10%. We've lost the port thrusters. Hull breach on deck 12. West's voice cut through the chaos. Keep her steady. All power to forward guns. The bridge glowed with emergency lights. Target the hive's core reactor, West ordered. Torres worked the console, her hands moving fast. Locked on target, sir? West took a breath. Fire everything. The Thunderchild unleashed hell. Railguns, missiles, plasma beams, everything they had, fired in one unified blast. The impact hit the Krell hive dead center. The explosion was blinding. For a moment, nothing but light filled the screen. Then the brightness faded, and the hive still stood. Damaged, burning, but alive. Reed cursed under his breath. It's not enough. West looked at him. Then we finish it by hand. He opened the comm. All ships, this is Captain West. Focus fire on the hive's central structure. The Thunderchild is going in. Reed stared. You can't be serious. I am, West said. We'll deliver the payload manually. Narrator calm grim. There are moments in history when survival is not enough. There are moments when humanity must remind the stars what fury truly means. West turned to the crew. Evacuate non-essential personnel to the fleet. This ship's going straight into the hive. Torres's eyes widened. Captain, that's suicide. West smiled. Then let's make it worth it. He looked at Reed. You don't have to stay. Reed shook his head. If you're going, I'm going. West nodded. Good man. As the Thunderchild dove toward the massive Krell ship, every human vessel opened fire to cover its path. Explosions filled the void, human ships burning, Krell ships shattering, space itself alight with chaos. The Thunderchild broke through the swarm, engines blazing. Distance to target, 5,000.